Enough is enough. This is not the California I gave my blood, sweat, and time for. That's how Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Terminator himself, opened fire. Not in a movie, but at a real-life political forum where he publicly dismantled Governor Gavin Newsom's leadership in front of a stunned crowd. What was meant to be a polite policy discussion turned into a full-blown political takedown. A dramatic, unscripted confrontation that left millions speechless. With cameras rolling and the nation watching, Arnold didn't hold back. From homelessness to taxes, from crumbling cities to broken promises, he called out the brutal truth about what's happening in California. And he put the blame squarely on Newsom's shoulders. This wasn't just a clash of words. It was a clash of visions for America's most iconic state. Chart decreasing, is California still the golden dream? Collision, or has it become a cautionary tale of failed leadership? In this video, we break down exactly what happened in that explosive moment, what it means for California's future, and why Arnold's words have sparked a political wildfire across the country. Stay tuned. This is the California story they don't want you to hear. Bell like, subscribe, and buckle up, because what you're about to see might just change how you see America's most powerful state forever. The Clash of Titans, it all went down at the Forum. This is not what I fought for. The voice was unmistakable, deep, commanding, and full of conviction. As those words echoed through the chamber, a wave of silence swept across the room. All eyes turned toward the man standing tall at the podium. Arnold Schwarzenegger, the former governor of California, the Hollywood icon, and one of the most recognizable voices in American politics. The setting? A high-stakes, nationally televised policy leadership forum held in downtown Los Angeles. Political leaders, journalists, business moguls, students, and activists filled the room. The media called it a summit of visionaries. But no one could predict the tension or the firestorm that would erupt when Schwarzenegger and current California Governor Gavin Newsom shared the same stage. From the moment the event began, the air was thick with anticipation. The two governors, past and present, sat side by side, microphones clipped, their eyes occasionally locking in silent challenge. It wasn't just about policy. This was about legacy, about what California once stood for and what it's becoming. And then, just minutes into the discussion, Schwarzenegger leaned forward, adjusted his mic, and let loose. California is not the golden dream it once was, he began, his Austrian accent adding even more gravity to his words. I ran this state to build a legacy, one that lifted people up. But now I see that legacy crumbling under weak leadership, failed policies, and a complete disconnect from the everyday Californian. The crowd froze. Journalists fumbled for their record buttons. Newsom looked stunned. Some audience members began to murmur, realizing they were witnessing a political thunderclap. You talk about progress, Arnold continued, but what progress do we see? Streets filled with tents, businesses fleeing the state, families unable to afford groceries or rent. This isn't progress. It's collapse in slow motion. And with that, the gloves were off. An unexpected showdown. This was supposed to be a civil dialogue, a bipartisan discussion about the future of California. But the moment Schwarzenegger took the mic, it turned into something far more electric. The former governor wasn't reading from a script. He spoke with passion, frustration, and deep concern, the kind of emotion rarely seen from politicians these days. He didn't come across as angry, but genuinely heartbroken. Heartbroken by a state he helped steer through crises. A state he once believed was destined to lead the world. But now, in his words, it's spinning out of control. We're losing the California dream, he said, looking directly at Newsom. And it's not because of bad luck, it's because of bad leadership. People were on the edge of their seats. Some leaned forward, nodding. Others whispered nervously. Phones were lifted to capture every word. Social media was already blowing up with real-time reactions. Gavin Newsom's stone-cold reaction. Newsom, caught slightly off guard, maintained a firm posture. He gave a polite smile, but behind his eyes, you could see the gears turning. This wasn't just criticism. This was an ambush from a fellow Democrat, a former governor, and one of California's most beloved public figures. He quickly interjected, attempting to redirect the conversation. "I respect Governor Schwarzenegger," Newsom said, "but I don't believe in nostalgia politics. California is not broken. It's evolving." But Schwarzenegger wasn't having it. "No," he said, shaking his head. "This isn't nostalgia. This is about accountability. You can't evolve into dysfunction and call it progress." And with that, the room erupted, not in chaos, but in raw energy. Half the audience broke into applause. The other half sat silent, processing what they had just heard. The real drama. Two leaders, two Californias. This moment wasn't just about two political figures disagreeing. It was a clash of two different visions of California. Newsom's California is progressive, climate-focused, data-driven, and internationally praised for its tech dominance and environmental laws. Schwarzenegger's California, on the other hand, was about balance, economic strength, environmental responsibility without overregulation, support for innovation and small businesses, and making the state livable for the working class. "I supported bold action on climate, too," Arnold reminded the crowd. "But we did it without driving out businesses or punishing families with endless taxes and mandates. It wasn't personal. It was principled, and it was hitting home." Audience shock, and a moment that changed the narrative. As the exchange continued, audience members began capturing clips on their phones. Within an hour, TikTok, X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram were flooded with short videos of the confrontation. Headlines began to appear in real time. Schwarzenegger blasts Newsom over California's decline. Former governor goes nuclear on state's leadership. This is not the dream anymore. Arnold drops truth bombs at forum. For many viewers at home and in the room, it felt like someone had finally said what they were thinking. "We all love California," Arnold said in his closing remarks. "But love means telling the truth, even when it hurts." And then he turned to Newsom one last time and said, "You're not just the governor. You're the guardian of a dream. Don't let that dream turn into a nightmare." With those words, the forum ended. But the impact? It was just beginning. Conclusion. The moment that broke the internet. By the next morning, clips of Arnold's speech had reached millions. Political commentators, celebrities, and citizens from all walks of life weighed in. Some said Schwarzenegger was bitter and overstepping. Others praised him for his courage and clarity. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just a forum. It was a moment of reckoning. A flashpoint where past met present. Where ideals clashed with reality. Arnold Schwarzenegger may not hold office anymore, but with just a few words, he reignited a statewide, maybe even national, conversation about leadership, responsibility, and what it truly means to. Arnold's brutal breakdown of California's problems. When Arnold Schwarzenegger took the stage at the policy forum, he didn't ease into the conversation. He attacked the issues head-on, like a man on a mission. There was no fluff, no political dodging. Just raw, hard-hitting truth. And what came next was a speech that shook the room, and is still echoing across the internet. He stood firm, looked around the packed audience of politicians, CEOs, community leaders, and press, and said in his signature tone, "I'm not here to play nice. I'm here to speak the truth. California is in deep trouble." And with that, he launched into what can only be described as a brutal breakdown of the problems California is currently facing. A reality check that didn't pull any punches. Cityscape at Dusk 1. Homelessness. This is not compassion. This is collapse. Arnold started with the most visible and heartbreaking crisis. Homelessness. You walk down the streets of San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, you don't see prosperity. You see people suffering on sidewalks, sleeping in tents, begging for help. And what have our leaders done? Made it worse. He pointed out that despite billions of taxpayer dollars being funneled into homeless services over the past decade, the crisis has only grown. In fact, California now holds the largest homeless population in the United States, with nearly 1/3 of the nation's homeless living in the state. This isn't just a policy failure, Arnold said. This is a moral failure. Throwing money at the problem without accountability, without clear results, is not compassion. It's collapse. He also criticized policies that, while well-intentioned, have enabled encampments to become semi-permanent and unsafe. We have cities within cities, tent cities, and we call this progress? This is not what California stands for. Moneybag 2. Taxes and the middle-class exodus. We're driving people out of paradise. Next, Schwarzenegger addressed what he called economic punishment, a reference to California's sky-high taxes. People come to California for opportunity. But what do they find now? Crushing taxes, unaffordable housing, and businesses buried under red tape. He detailed how both residents and corporations are fleeing the state in record numbers. Companies like Tesla, Oracle, and Hewlett-Packard have moved their headquarters out of California. Families are relocating to states like Texas, Arizona, and Florida, not for politics, but for survival. We have everything here: sunshine, beaches, tech empires, but people are packing up and leaving. Why? Because they can't afford to stay in the mess that's been created. Arnold pointed directly at Sacramento's tax structure, saying it's punishing productivity, innovation, and working families. If you work hard, save, try to build a life here, the state punishes you. That's the message we're sending. Chart decreasing 3. Overregulation. You're strangling the dreamers. Then came what many business owners in the room had been waiting for: Schwarzenegger's blistering take on overregulation. You've got startup founders, restaurant owners, real estate developers, all trying to do something positive, and the state is tying their hand behind their backs. He cited story after story of small business owners who've been buried in permit delays, environmental red tape, or complex labor laws that make it nearly impossible to grow. I'm all for clean energy and workers' rights, he said, but when regulations become so complex that even lawyers can't understand them, we've lost our way. He compared the current environment to what it was during his tenure as governor, a time when he says the state still had the ability to balance environmental goals with economic growth. Now, it's just regulation for the sake of regulation, and you're strangling the dreamers. Cityscape 4. Crime and public safety. We've gone soft on chaos. Schwarzenegger then pivoted to one of the most controversial issues in the state: the surge in crime. Let me be clear, California isn't just dealing with poverty. It's dealing with lawlessness. And people are scared. He pointed to data showing increases in property crime, theft, and assaults in cities like Oakland, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. While some local leaders blame economic hardship, Arnold argued that lenient policies and weak enforcement have made matters worse. If someone breaks into your store and they walk out with $900 worth of goods without consequences, that's not justice. That's insanity. He called for common-sense reforms that empower police, protect citizens, and restore a sense of law and order, without resorting to over-policing or violating civil rights. We've gone soft on chaos, and now people don't feel safe in their own neighborhoods. High voltage 5. Power grid and infrastructure failures. How is this still happening in 2025? Then came the final blow, and it was aimed at something that should have been fixed years ago: California's broken energy grid. This is the 5th largest economy in the world, and yet we still have rolling blackouts in the summer? Are you kidding me? He spoke about his own efforts during his time in office to modernize infrastructure, invest in clean energy, and reduce reliance on unstable energy sources. But now, he said, those efforts have stalled or been reversed, leaving the state vulnerable. This isn't just inconvenient, it's dangerous. Hospitals, schools, homes, all at risk because we can't keep the lights on. He blamed years of bureaucratic infighting, mismanagement, and over-reliance on emergency fixes instead of long-term solutions. We're treating our infrastructure like it's someone else's problem. But guess what? It's everyone's problem. Warning, the bigger message: this isn't left versus right, it's right versus wrong. After breaking down each crisis, homelessness, taxes, overregulation, crime, and energy failures, Arnold pulled it all together with a powerful message that drew applause from both sides of the aisle. This isn't about Democrats or Republicans. This is about competence, accountability, and courage. And right now, California is lacking all three. He emphasized that leadership is not about speeches and press conferences, but about results, about listening to the people, about protecting the working class, the dreamers, the families just trying to survive. California used to be the envy of the world. Now it's becoming a warning sign. He ended with one of the most powerful lines of the night. You can't call it progress when people are suffering, fleeing, and losing hope. That's not progress. That's failure wearing a suit. Direct hit, final words. Wake up before it's too late. As Schwarzenegger stepped away from the microphone, the room was silent. Not because they didn't care, but because they were processing a message that cut through years of spin. He hadn't delivered a partisan rant. He delivered a wake-up call. The California dream isn't dead, he said, but it's on life support. And if we don't act now, if we don't course correct, the dream will flatline. And just like that, he walked off stage, leaving behind a state-sized question: can California